The sound of paper ripping echoed across the bright interview room like a cruel celebration. A worn resume, filled with years of honest work, was torn into tiny pieces before it could even reach the hiring manager's desk. The man standing quietly in front of them didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply looked at the shredded pages scattered across the polished floor while tightening his grip on the small backpack hanging from his shoulder, the backpack that belonged to his 8-year-old son waiting downstairs. Everyone in the room assumed they were looking at another desperate single father who had fallen behind in life. None of them imagined they had just humiliated the silent owner of the very company where they hoped to build their own careers. Before this incredible story continues, take a second to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes kindness matters, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Every subscription helps us bring more emotional stories that remind the world that compassion always wins over pride. The morning sunlight poured through the enormous glass windows of Hawthorne Innovations, one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. Employees rushed through the elegant lobby carrying coffee cups and expensive laptops, each hoping to impress the executives during the company's annual leadership recruitment day. Among the crowd walked a modest man named Nathan Alder. His faded blue shirt had been ironed carefully the night before. His shoes showed years of wear but were spotless. His face carried quiet exhaustion, yet his eyes remained gentle. Walking beside him until the building entrance was his cheerful son, Rowan, who hugged him tightly before heading to a nearby children's learning center arranged for visitors. Nathan smiled warmly, kissed his son's forehead, and reminded him that no matter what happened, they would always face life together. No one recognized Nathan because very few employees had ever met the company's majority owner. Years earlier, Nathan had built Hawthorne Innovations inside a tiny rented garage after losing everything during a painful divorce and the unexpected passing of his wife from a sudden illness. Instead of living like a billionaire, he had chosen a life of privacy. He believed leadership could only be understood by experiencing every level of a company firsthand. Every year, without announcing himself, he secretly visited different branches disguised as an ordinary applicant to observe how people treated those with no visible status. This year, the headquarters became his destination. Nathan carried a simple resume listing only his work experience without mentioning his ownership. It was never meant to secure a job. It was simply a mirror reflecting the company's true culture. Inside the waiting area, dozens of applicants competed for attention. Some wore expensive suits. Others whispered confidently about prestigious universities and impressive salaries. Nathan quietly sat near the window reviewing family photos on his phone. Every picture showed Rowan smiling despite growing up without luxury. Nathan's greatest achievement had never been his fortune. It was raising a son who believed every person deserved respect. Several applicants glanced toward Nathan with amused expressions. They noticed the old backpack, the inexpensive watch, and the wrinkles on his shirt. Assumptions spread silently across the room long before introductions began. Soon the assistant invited everyone upstairs for group evaluations. The interview panel consisted of ambitious department managers determined to prove themselves before the board of directors. They had prepared difficult questions designed to eliminate candidates quickly. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, professionalism had been replaced by arrogance. When Nathan's turn arrived, one interviewer barely looked up from the resume. His previous positions seemed too ordinary. His education appeared average. His employment history included years spent fixing machines, managing warehouses, and consulting anonymously for struggling startups. The interviewers laughed quietly among themselves. One manager grabbed Nathan's resume and sarcastically remarked that people like him wasted everyone's valuable time by applying for executive positions. Without hesitation, she tore the resume into pieces while several others watched in uncomfortable silence. Tiny fragments drifted onto the conference table like falling snow. Nathan simply nodded. He bent down, picked up every torn piece carefully, and placed them into his pocket instead of leaving a mess for someone else to clean. His calmness confused everyone. Most people would have argued. Others would have stormed out. Nathan only thanked them for their time before quietly leaving the room. As he stepped into the hallway, one young receptionist named Mira witnessed everything. Her eyes filled with tears. She had wanted to stop the humiliation but feared losing her own job. Nathan noticed her guilt and smiled kindly, reassuring her without saying a word that she wasn't responsible for someone else's choices. Meanwhile, downstairs, Rowan waited patiently with a children's coloring book. He proudly told another child that his father always said kindness was the strongest kind of success. Those innocent words would soon echo through the entire building. At exactly noon, every employee received an urgent notification requesting immediate attendance inside the grand auditorium. Whispers filled every hallway. Some believed a merger had been announced. Others expected record-breaking financial news. No one imagined the truth. When everyone finally gathered, the chairman entered alongside the board of directors. Behind them walked Nathan, now wearing a tailored navy suit that had been waiting inside his private office. The transformation was astonishing, yet his expression remained exactly the same, humble, peaceful, and composed. Silence swept across the room. The interview panel froze. Faces turned pale. The chairman introduced Nathan as the founder, majority owner, and visionary who had built Hawthorne Innovations from a struggling dream into a global success employing thousands of families. Gasps echoed throughout the auditorium. Some employees lowered their heads in disbelief. Others immediately recognized the torn pieces of paper still resting inside Nathan's hand. The chairman explained that Nathan visited different offices every year under disguise because financial success meant nothing if respect disappeared from company culture. Profit could be rebuilt. Reputation could recover. But humanity, once lost, destroyed everything from within. Video recordings from the interview room appeared on the giant screen. The entire audience watched in complete silence as the resume was ripped apart. No dramatic music played. No angry speeches interrupted. Only the uncomfortable truth unfolded before everyone's eyes. Nathan stepped forward and calmly explained that the resume had never represented his qualifications. It represented every struggling parent who walked into an interview carrying invisible burdens, children depending on them, bills waiting at home, sleepless nights filled with worry, and dreams barely surviving beneath constant rejection. He admitted that after losing his wife, there were mornings when he had attended interviews while hiding tears because Rowan needed breakfast more than he needed dignity. He remembered employers judging his old clothes without realizing he had spent his last dollars on medicine instead of replacing worn shoes. Those painful memories inspired him to build Hawthorne Innovations differently. Not perfect, but better. He believed every applicant deserved basic respect regardless of education, appearance, or financial background. The room became painfully quiet. Even executives wiped tears from their eyes. The managers responsible for humiliating Nathan stood trembling with shame. None could find words powerful enough to erase what they had done. Nathan looked toward them with remarkable compassion instead of anger. He announced that consequences would still exist because leadership required accountability. Those who intentionally participated in the humiliation would immediately lose their management positions and enter mandatory ethics retraining if they wished to remain employed in any capacity. Those who silently watched without speaking up would complete empathy leadership programs before receiving future promotions. Then Nathan surprised everyone once again. He turned toward Mira, the young receptionist whose kindness had quietly stood apart from the crowd. Although she held no authority, she had shown genuine humanity. Nathan promoted her into the company's employee culture department, believing character mattered far more than titles. The auditorium erupted into heartfelt applause. News of the incident spread nationwide within hours. Applications flooded into Hawthorne Innovations from people inspired by the company's commitment to dignity over ego. Other corporations requested Nathan's guidance in transforming workplace culture. Business magazines praised not his wealth, but his humility. Yet the most meaningful moment happened later that evening. Nathan returned home carrying no trophies. No headlines. No celebrations. Only fresh groceries and Rowan's favorite pizza. As father and son ate dinner beside the kitchen window while golden afternoon sunlight filled their modest home, Rowan asked whether the interview had gone well. Nathan smiled softly and answered that people sometimes forgot who they were when chasing success, but they could always remember if someone chose forgiveness instead of revenge. Rowan simply hugged his father. That embrace meant more than every business award Nathan had ever received. Because in that quiet moment, surrounded by ordinary happiness, Nathan realized true wealth had never lived inside company accounts. It lived inside the heart of a little boy growing into a kind man. If this story touched your heart even a little, please support Single Dad Empire by liking this video, sharing it with family and friends, and subscribing so more people can discover stories that remind us kindness can still change the world. Special request: tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you had witnessed someone tearing up an applicant's resume? The next morning, a framed copy of Nathan's torn resume hung inside the company's main lobby. It wasn't displayed as a reminder of embarrassment. It became a permanent promise that every person entering those doors, whether billionaire, janitor, executive, or struggling single parent, would be greeted with the dignity every human being deserves. Employees walked past it every day, remembering that resumes reveal experience, but character reveals destiny. And that simple lesson transformed not only a company, but thousands of lives connected to it, proving forever that the greatest leaders never demand respect first, they choose to give it.